Welcome to the People Strategy Podcast. I'm Tracy Austin, your host, and in this show, we dive into the latest trends and best practices in talent management and organizational development. Join me as I chat with industry experts, HR leaders, and business innovators to uncover strategies that can elevate your people and your business. And gratitude is a huge part of all that we do and really creating a people strategy to your organization. Gratitude's a good one. So we want to thank Zach Dames. Zach has been on our podcast. It's been a bit, episode 115, where we talked about how culture can impact retention and turnover. And if you haven't listened to that one, go ahead and give it a listen after you listen to today's. And today we're going to talk with Nick Lombardino with CultureCon. And CultureCon is an event. Is it 5 years now, Nick?
7.
7. Oh my gosh, I don't know where I got 5 from. So this will be the 7th year of CultureCon and talk a little bit about how we can come together to learn some things and create a significant impact on culture. And again, culture is definitely a key piece that will develop people's strategies in your organization. So, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. Yeah, thrilled to be here and excited to chat with you.
Yeah. So I attended CultureCon for the first time last year, but I had been following it for quite some time. And I just loved you started the conference with you and your co-host jumping out of an airplane. That was the video. And I was like, okay, we're just going to have fun. And so why is fun such an important part of culture inside of an organization?
Well, I'll speak for myself personally. Yeah, for myself and my co founder, Zach Blumenfeld, I think for us to show up as our authentic selves, we have to instill some element of goofiness or silliness. It's almost giving us permission to not take ourselves too seriously. And that's how we feel the most comfortable. I know in the past, when we would have conferences or be on podcasts, if we ever felt like we were having to be performative or feigning an expertise in something that we knew nothing about, that's when like the stress and the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome would kick in. So yeah, for us, it's really all about what can we do selfishly to make sure that we can show up and feel comfortable and be our true authentic selves. And for us, it's silliness, jumping out of airplanes, I guess. Yeah.
So is that really selfish?
No, I say it half jokingly. Yeah, I don't think it's selfish because frankly, we do our best work when we have those types of elements in place. And that's certainly the business imperative for organizations is doing what they can to create the right processes and structures and overall organizational culture where people feel like they can belong and bring their full self to work. And that's only going to yield the best results.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we feel like we can be authentic and feel like we belong, our nervous system isn't all whacked out.
That's
Right.
real. That's
And
real.
and when the stress comes out, the nervous system is not aligned and we can't perform our best selves then. So I'm curious, what was the path that got you to co-create CultureCon with Zach?
Well, all the credit goes to Zach for kind of the inception and ideation in the early days. So back in 2016, Zach was growing a software company with a few other gentlemen in Madison, Wisconsin called Third Space. And I give them a lot of credit. It was this cool platform that essentially incentivized company employees to experience their organizational culture at a deeper level, but through like a gamified path. And so the individuals would take essentially like a personality assessment, and then the app would create a journey map of how that individual could experience the company's culture at a deeper level that was more entwined with that individual's intrinsic motivators and strengths. So super cool idea. And they were going through the process in the early days of pressure testing certain functionality and getting ideas from local business leaders and HR heads. So they were doing a lot of focus groups and roundtable conversations. In the early days of me meeting Zach, he was telling me about how these focus groups were shaking out. And he would say, he was like, people don't care about really what we're building in the app, but holy cow, are these forums super powerful for individuals really just bringing forward their own workplace culture challenges, things that they're trying to navigate internally, and then having the group crowdsource ideas on how to help them solve that problem. So people were so eager to want to share their own lessons learned, their own resources, connections, tools, templates. And so Zach just had this idea pretty quickly where he was like, if we just extrapolate this a little bit further and create a container for more of these conversations to happen, I think there's something there. So I said, great. Sounds like you did all the market research for us. How do I help? But at that time, I was doing, for my previous employer, I was building a lot of communities of practice around topic specific things. So we created a peer governed group for change management, project management, and a lot of the themes and topics for those groups really had to do with organizational culture. So it didn't feel like that much of a stretch for me to get involved from a planning standpoint and just kind of help extrapolate Zach's vision and help him operationalize it.
Amazing. So I'm curious, you created this, you have this vision, and now you're going to operationalize it. And in all that market research and what you've learned in the last 7 years with CultureCon, what are some of those key people strategies that have popped out of that?
Yeah, I would say not to diminish the value and the expertise of the speakers and facilitators that come to our conference. These truly are world renowned experts. So I don't want to diminish the value of having them at the conference, but really I would say the magic is trying to create what Zach and I are starting to call engineered synchronicities at the event. So trying to create the right intentionality just to create enough structure for people to be able to have really meaningful connections with one another at the event. And I think that's really what drives a lot of human behavior is feeling like you're a part of a greater calling or mission or community. And then being around those types of people only better instills a deeper sense of belonging and a better will to act. And so I think that's been our mentality as we've tried to mature our own conference planning capabilities is what can we do to just create the right container for these engineered synchronicities to keep happening. And it's been fun.
Yeah. And I think there's 2 things here that I think are so important is I believe we need to see an example of what's possible. And as you're engineering these conversations, you're also sharing example after example of what's possible, either through the speakers or through the conversation topics that have at tables, which you beautifully facilitate
Mhm.
that connection with folks. And so I am curious, what was the example for you that CultureCon was possible that you stepped in to co-create it?
The very first event, this is such a great example of how inept Nick and Zach are at planning events. The very first conference we hosted was on Valentine's Day in the middle of a snowstorm in Madison, Wisconsin. We were like, "Oh my gosh, if we can just get 50 people to come, that would be an incredible success." And we had well over 100, I think close to 120 people showed up to that very first quote unquote test conference that we held on Valentine's Day. And to your point, Tracy, just like the evidence of not only people showing up, but to just bear witness to the conversations that were happening in and around the room with people was for me, I'm a very, let's just say, a risk averse person. Like those were crucial data points for me to have the confidence of being like, there is something here. And not only is it evidence from a business case, but just for me personally, it felt like really good medicine to be around so many incredible human beings that were passionate about not only wanting to make work more meaningful for themselves, but to make work and life more meaningful for those around them. That was the light bulb moment for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've talked with several folks that either have attended in the past. I know one of the key speakers that kind of lit, a light bulb. We'll go with that. That lit a light bulb
Yep.
as to,
Setting
for
light
me.
bulbs on fire.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Love that.
something like that. One of the things that really stood out to me last year was Jeff Lindemann's talk from WD-40 as he was talking about the hierarchy of organizational values. And there's some that are more important to the other, and that is a decision-making framework.
Let me just say, first of all, it stinks that Zach and I can never sit in on each and every one of the presentations that happen at the conference. So a lot of the times, either we're watching the presentations retroactively or relying on attendees to tell us the core takeaways from events. So yes, Jeff Lindemann from WD-40 was a very popular session at CultureCon 2024. One of the things that's been reported back to me is not just from Jeff's session, but from others is not necessarily a movement away from core values, but a reframing almost as like these are the actionable behaviors that we hope that you carry when you're within our organization. And I think some of the reason for the reframing is because maybe certain organizations don't want to make people feel like they as individuals need to change their own personal core values to necessarily meet the core values of the employer. So these are the behaviors that are desirable within our organization. And these are the types of ways that we want you to exhibit those behaviors, types of things. So I don't know if that was a part of Jeff's presentation, but I'm hearing more and more of these types of observations from attendees as like a little bit of a reframing of the core value nomenclature.
Yeah, for sure. And from a people strategy perspective, when we can make those words become 3D in the behaviors, because really what we care about is behaviors,
Right,
right?
right.
Is I care about the behavior that people exhibit, whether that is how they treat others, whether that is the ethics of how they go about doing their work, whether whatever that is so important. And I think that there is not that an individual has to change their personal values to match the core values of an organization yet. Those things aren't aligned, the individual can't be authentic at work. And that starts to create almost this chasm where folks then decide that they're not showing up to work. We've got the presenteeism, right?
Right.
I'm going to show up to work, but I'm not mentally going to be there. And I'm going to be there because I have to be there versus wanting to be there. And I don't know about you, but it's like when I want to be there and feel there's an impact of what I'm doing and I can truly be myself, I'm going to show up in a whole lot bigger way.
Totally.
I'm curious, what are some of the key, like, things that folks have said have been the key takeaways for you over the years?
One that's mounting that I personally have a passion in is we'll start by saying building a culture of innovation. But then with building a culture of innovation, how do you be able to source new and innovative ideas from your employees that provide some sort of not only economic value for your employer, but simultaneously have some sort of social or environmental impact happening in parallel. So we sometimes call this social entrepreneurship. So being able to drive economic value while also doing something that's of societal or environmental benefit. And so that has been something super interesting to have people, presenters be able to come forward with. These are the things that we're doing internally to create the right space and the right processes to allow individuals to bring their own causes and passions into the workplace and present ideas on new things we can do that are going to help drive societal change or environmental benefit while also producing something that has some level of economic value for the company. And one of my favorite stories to illustrate this is Levi's, the jeans company. A few years ago, they had started their own innovative process on how they could generate new and novel ideas from their different departments. And one of the individuals from their R&D team had proposed the idea, or really the question. He said, "What if we took the water out of our manufacturing process for jeans?" And people are like, "Whoa, I don't know. Is that possible? Can we do that?" And so that spawned this whole effort to be able to literally re-engineer the process for how jeans are manufactured. So millions of gallons of water go into manufacturing jeans the traditional way, but they were able to find some sort of like mineral based process on washing the jeans with, in my caveman brain, it's like, oh, it looks like a bunch of rocks are in there like helping to manufacture the jeans. So not only have they removed the water from the manufacturing process and therefore helping to benefit the environment, but from an economic gain standpoint, consumers were so impressed by this idea to take water out of the manufacturing process that now it's one of the most profitable product lines. It's waterless jeans. You can research it. Levi's waterless jeans. And so now I think that's just like one of the coolest examples of being able to tap your team to ask those what if questions. And then on the other side of it, being able to potentially have a new flagship product or service while also providing something so incredibly beneficial, in this case, to the environment. So these are some of the new trends that we're seeing that we couldn't be
Yeah.
more excited about.
That's incredible. One of the questions, and I ask everyone who's on my podcast these 2 questions, and I'm always curious to see how we tie them together. So I'm gonna ask them both of you. But my first question is, what is on your work bucket list for this year?
For this year, oh gosh, can I tell you something that was on our bucket list that we did that we're proud of? Maybe start
Yep,
there. Okay.
sure.
we've started experimenting with doing some industry specific events or topic specific events. And Zach and I are excited to announce that we're going to be having a 2-day AI specific conference in April of 2026. But I have to tell you, the process of us identifying that opportunity to it being like fully launched was probably a month. And usually it takes months of us being
Mhm.
able to get right, going through all the venue procurement, what are we going to talk about, all that stuff, right? So the irony behind all of it is that it's kind of embarrassing. AI like floated the idea to us. We were using ChatGPT one day when we were trying to ideate on new solutions, and it said, "Well, you should do an AI specific conference." And we're like, "Damn it, why didn't we think of that? Great idea." So,
Thanks AI
thanks
for
AI.
being self-serving, right?
Right, yeah, and now we're hosting a conference for it in celebration. But yeah, so, like, that to me, I bring it up because, boy, that was, like, a huge light bulb moment where it was like, "Wait, realistically, we can bring a new two-day conference online in less than a month time frame and have it be something that, to us personally, is super interesting, and we're passionate about the subject and bringing people together to talk about it." It's not a bucket list item, I guess, but it was something that now we're just thinking, oh my goodness, what types of scalable opportunities are available to us that maybe previously we've just told ourselves that timelines aren't conducive for these types of deployments. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, for sure.
that was a cool little kind of reflection
Yeah,
moment.
so 2 things out of that. First, you lit the light bulb, right?
We lit it on fire.
You
Y-
did,
uh,
and the power of our own thoughts, right?
mm,
All beliefs is thoughts that we've thought over and over and over again until we believe that they're fact, when actually they're not.
right.
So,
Powerful.
okay,
Well said.
but I still wanna know, what's a work bucket list item you have for the next 5 years? Something like that that you'd love to do, but you haven't, or maybe you haven't dreamed of it yet.
Nope, I'm gonna tell
Now I
you.
put you on the
That's
spot.
great. You gave me enough time to be able to noodle on it a little bit, and I feel a little bit embarrassed that I'm leveraging what I just said in your previous question. Zach and I have a mind to be able to do more conferences that are more social entrepreneurship focused. Obviously, there are huge cultural undertones that are going to allow organizations to take advantage of these sorts of opportunities. But I think what I need individually, and maybe what a lot of us need, are just more hopeful stories and examples of the power of just human ingenuity in solving problems in a way that build great businesses, but also do something for society and the environment in these times. That is a bucket list item to figure out within the next 1 to 5 years. How are we going to bring more of that online? And the example I just gave of just like we proved to ourselves that it took less than a month to write a new conference series online, like that's really helping light some light bulbs on fire for
Yeah.
us, so to speak. So, yeah.
So for all of our listeners, like, really think about what is stopping you from doing that key project, training, whatever it is that can really shift your team. What's stopping that? And then the question is, so what would happen if you made it happen?
Mhm.
Because so often it's so much easier than we make ourselves believe that it is.
That's powerful. Yep. Couldn't agree more.
All right. So what's a personal bucket list item?
Travel.
To
Yeah.
where?
Italy.
Italy.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. That man, all these answers sound so cliche. Yes, I have lived a sheltered life in my bubble of Madison, Wisconsin. I love it here. I've never felt compelled to leave. And my wife and extended family are from here as well, but we are woefully underserved from travel. And for both my wife and I, Italy is definitely on the bucket list. And we're looking at a 2026 date.
Incredible.
That's the one.
It's funny you name Italy, and I'm going to give you an example of how you tie together work and bucket list items. Actually, with a colleague of mine who runs food based wellness retreats in Calabria, Italy, we are hosting a female entrepreneur retreat in Calabria, Italy, where we will be learning and talking about and working with a master chef. Is that what you call them? I don't know,
Sure.
culinary person.
Yep. That sounds
But,
good to me.
wining and dining, the hotel overlooks the Ionian Sea. This came out of a work thing where I do a ton with organizations, but I have such a heart for female business owners and female leaders that are those entrepreneurs inside the organization. and I wanted to get to Italy. And Hannah and I started talking one day about it, and I'm like, okay, this just merged work and personal together. And when we can start to think about how do we best serve our employees, what are they most passionate about? What is a work bucket list for them that starts to create those innovative items inside the organization that they can just fly behind and get behind and tie it into something that's important to them personally? Now, all of a sudden, we've started to create and shift the culture. Are you excited about this,
So
Nick?
excited. God, there's 5 different bunny trails I wanna respond with. One is food is my love language, so I'm already just, like, bouncing my seat listening to you describe this. But it bring like, how you just articulated that, like, the idea of bringing your personal passions into it reminds me of this quote by Howard Thurman, who was a theologian and civil rights leader. He said, gotta make sure I get this right, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive and go do that, because what the world
Yes.
needs is people who have come alive."
Yes, 100%. And did you see, like, I completely came alive when I started talking about
Yeah,
this.
that was perfect. Amazing. Yeah, oh, I'm so excited for you. That sounds incredible. You gotta send me this. I can think of at least 5
Oh,
people right out the bat that would love
I
to.
will.
Okay,
I
great.
will. And so we're gonna do this one's female, but we are going to do a couples one. So Hannah and I are talking about a couples one. So don't have the date for that one yet, but this one's November 1st through 7th. Look at me
Amazing.
pitching on my own show, which
As
I
you
never
should
do.
be,
Thanks, Nick.
because 'cause you're proud of it. That's
I know.
great.
So if you are interested in coming to Italy, we'll put that in the show notes inadvertently. So, but I'm curious for you, how do you tie all of these new conferences coming up in Italy into CultureCon? Is
Holy cow.
CultureCon going to
CultureCon
Italy?
Italy? Oh my
Yes.
gosh. The way that would get me excited to figure it out is food.
So, this is a living example of how these things happen. And by the way, this podcast drops on my birthday.
It
I
was
know,
meant to
it's
be.
phenomenal.
Meant
It
to
was
be.
meant to be. So, but for our listeners, what I love you to really noodle on is what are those passions for your people that are both work bucket list and personal bucket list? And when you can start to tie those together, have them write their own reviews by asking them the question that says, if you were to get a 5 all across the board on your reviews, what would that look like for you? And what would you be doing that has an impact and a passion? Now, all of a sudden, all this crappy HR work that we all hate, says the HR person that's been in the seat for 20 plus years, goes out the window because we can really start connecting with the people that are in front of us and aligning it into those business results.
Nailed it. So good.
These are the ideas you get when you go to CultureCon. So when is CultureCon? August?
That's right. Yep. CultureCon 2025 is August 5th through 7th in Madison, Wisconsin. We also have a virtual offering for that as well. And then CultureCon West 2025 is in Las Vegas, and that's November 3rd through 5th. And we're
Awesome.
lighting light bulbs on fire.
Yeah, we're lighting light bulbs.
Yep.
Incredible. Any last notes you have for our listeners?
No last notes, just gratitude to you, Tracy. I feel like I learned so much about intrinsic motivators and reframing certain things that might be seen as problems as opportunities. And so I'm just super grateful to know you and learn from you. So thank you so much for having me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you, Nick. And I'm so excited to see you in August, if not before. Thank you so much for listening today. I'd love to connect with you. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn at Tracy, Traci Austin, and at our website at elevatedtalentconsulting.com. If you'd love to learn more about our process, please reach out to us. And again, thank you so much for listening and sharing your feedback with us through a review. Have a fantastic day.